Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 13, lucky number 13. We'll see if it turns lucky for us as we head to Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix in this one. And we do it as a team who has scored points. Of course, coming off our first points paying performance, it was a 10th place, combined with a fastest lap. If you didn't stick around to the very end of the episode to see that, yes, on the final lap, Albon scored the fastest lap, making that final push to make sure we got it ahead and stayed ahead of Ricardo, with everybody else in the top 9 positions had nothing to actually race for. Plus, we were able to get up on the back end of Perez, who was a lap ahead through all of that. And anyway, it amounted to a fastest lap by nearly half. I think it was 0.3 of a second over Verstappen, but more than half a second better than everybody else's lap. So, that was pretty cool. Nobody was on fresh tires. That was absolutely a factor in that one. We had already had a vote on new regulations for next year. We're getting another. Yeah, not just one, 2 in the same year. Really surprised about that. Let's see what it's all about. All right, so here is the proposed rule change. It has nothing to do with the cars, but it does have to do with our scoring system. No change to the pole position or fastest lap bonuses, but it is a change to double points for the last race while the points allocation remains unchanged. So the only change here is doing double points for the last race. Now, my opinion on this matter, I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. I'm fairly on the fence. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I hate that. Rah. Troll on Twitter. Oh my gosh, F1 Twitter. Oh, grow up, people. Seriously. But it's not something I'm fond of either. It's something that I'm sort of just like about. I think each race should have equal value of some sort. Each race should provide the same sort of opportunities. I think sprint races should be all races or no races. I do get that it doesn't work at some venues in the same manner as you would hope. I like how F2 has every race weekend has a sprint race and a feature race, and you're getting a different set of points for each. And I do like that. But I don't think that one race should hold more weight than others. I do understand that if you are fighting for a championship, that last race, having those double points, adds excitement to the last race, where it might already be a foregone conclusion before the final race. This year looks like it's going to be a foregone conclusion well before the last race, because Ferrari have not sorted out their terrible strategy blunders or their unreliability throughout the year. Mercedes is only 20 points behind Ferrari right now, and arguably Ferrari's had the faster car many race weekends. Red Bull, more so on average, has had the faster car, but barely. There's a huge points gap at the top. But anyway, so I'm not unopposed to it, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I think each race should have the same value, especially when the last race is Abu Dhabi. Come on. So I'm going to vote against for now, but I won't be too upset if it's a positive vote. Meanwhile, we've also picked up our first of these type of things, and I'm actually a fan of this. This is F1 in schools, meaning engineering departments going out to schools and helping inspire the next generation. As somebody who was a middle and high school teacher for 10 years before opening the daycare 4 years ago, and still coach volleyball, basketball, and track at the school that I used to teach at, I am absolutely all for getting engineers. So even though it's going to stall staff experience gain for a week, It's not about the cash. I would do it even if there wasn't any cash involved. We will attend. Manufacturing project of the underfloor is complete, but of course our next research upgrade is nearly ready, so we're going to almost immediately go back into manufacturing more, but at least we do have some reserves of the future backup variety. I thought about stopping this a little beforehand, but it's okay. We have gone through a couple already. Okay, so this is a big one. The design center upgrade is complete. This is going to add 4 more engineers, at least it will in a moment, to our engineering team. So you can see we can now push this up to 10. Yes, there's obviously an additional cost to it, but it is absolutely well worth it because only having 6 engineers has been so costly for us. So we're going to push this up to 10 now. And as a result, we are immediately able to go in and do some more work because we have one thing that is currently being done. And as we have 18 days left on the current project, the underfloor, I don't think there's anything that I can do to that project to increase the number of engineers working on it. No, I can't change the number. Oh, maybe I can. Edit project. 6 is the capacity. So I could drop it down to 5, have it take a couple extra days, and then have 2 teams of engineers. It's going to take 2 more days. I'm going to actually do that. So we're going to have 2 teams of 5 engineers. It looks like your capacity for a project is 6. If that's the case, we might as well go near capacity and have 2 equal teams working simultaneously on different things, which almost doubles our research capacity from what it was before. Because you have 1 less, it takes slightly longer to finish a project, but you're doing 2 projects at a time. And I've already thought about this one beforehand. Here's what I want to do. 1 team is going to continually work on research for next year's car, which is minor changes. It's not major changes to the car, so you really don't have to overly commit to the design for next year's car. But the more we commit to it, the better off we'll be, right? I mean, it's bound to make a difference. And 1 team is going to work on this year's edition of the car, which at the end of the season is just going to have this little negative percentile attachment to it anyway. 1 team working on this year's design, one team working on next year's design, and that's our path going forward. Now, the only thing about doing that is we're going to have to keep an eye on our wind tunnel times and things like that and see when those reset periods are coming up so that we make sure we maximize the usage of that and get the most out of this development. So we do have 50 days until the next reset, which means we're absolutely going to have another upgrade coming during that period, in which case I'm going to use slightly less than 50% of what we have towards next year's car and then put 45% of our time available into a front wing upgrade. I cannot do the underfloor at the same time as the front wing, even if it is this year's versus next year's car. So with that in mind, our initial upfront research benefit is looking like a pretty healthy upgrade to next year's car. Yeah, here's that confirmation. You can assign up to 6 engineers to a project. More engineers means faster completion, but lower expertise gain. This is going to take 54 days to complete. The research cost is $1 million. No problem covering that. We've got it. And so it looks like the change is going to happen. Like I said, not overly disappointed by this one, but in a vote of 6-4, with Mercedes, Alpine, Haas voting alongside us, it is going to happen. So we are now going to have double points for last race of the year.
It's Grand Prix time here in Le Castellet. The very first horseless carriage race was organised in France in 1894. And since then, the carriages have only gotten faster. For the Grand Prix here, Paul Ricard boasts a fine collection of low, medium and high-speed corners. The scene curve is taken at breakneck speed, right before heavy braking at Beausset. This is an all-rounder test for cars and drivers alike. We're about halfway through the season now, and there's still plenty of time for everything to change. All eyes are on the teams and how they tackle the rest of the year. What will happen this weekend? Only time...
Cloudy on Friday, clear on Saturday. Moderate rain expected for the race on Sunday. That'll definitely make things interesting, especially if that rain is not consistent throughout the course of the race. We could really, really benefit from that as the track kind of changes and trying to read those changes. But of course, our weather reporting, not great compared to some of the other teams, but that still doesn't mean that we can't do better than everybody else. I think we absolutely could. Now, Le Castellet Paul Ricard is all types of turns, lengthy straights. This is an all-arounder kind of track. You have to have all aspects. We've fixed 1.5 pieces of this car. We are decent at high speed, and we're okay on medium speed corners. We're not good anywhere else yet. We're still last place everywhere else. So I do not have high expectations for this race weekend, but we'll see what we can do. Based on the expectation that we might be a bit more at the back of the grid today, I want to give you a little more insight to what I do for race setup. And you can see from here, this is the expectation. Right now the window's huge. So how we approach that one, well, you don't need to be right in the middle. In fact, you don't need to be very close to the middle realistically at all. But I do try to get a little setup going as a start point. And I try to keep things relatively close to the expected start point, meaning I don't want to go crazy with the anti-roll distribution to a 1.9. I'd rather start with a 4.6 or a balanced 5.5. Keep it a little bit neutral so you have more room to work with. If you start on an extreme, it's going to be hard to rein that in, especially if you need more in that direction. By starting a little bit towards the middle, you're giving yourself at least a teaser, but you can see, the kind of general arc here is like that. And so we have that kind of general arc to start out with. Also, I want to make sure that my first run has plenty of laps to go out there and do what you can. These tires aren't going to last terribly long, so that should be more than enough to get through that first run to get all of our feedback. Now, as soon as we have that feedback, the moment I get to those 5 feedback pieces, I bring them in and start making adjustments.
Now watch
early FP1, and we've got a spin here with Albon.
What a spin!
Same lap, 6 corners later, under braking.
The car's just gone.
Albon has spun a second time. So Pourchaire's window was very different from what we saw for Albon's, and so our feedback from the first one, it's pretty good in 2 areas, really bad in 2 areas, but the easy thing is they're at the edge of the window, so all you have to do is push the opposite direction. And most everything else can be only changed moderately, and you're going to see a drastic improvement. To get the rear wing angle, to get the straight speed, you got to start from there. So we're definitely going to push that opposite direction here by moving the rear wing back over, and then we need to get that braking stability in a better state as well. But you can see that we can actually do that with some front wing angle and pull these over and actually save ourselves 4 minutes of messing with the rest of the balance. Meanwhile, we can fight to get those back later on, because more running time is going to narrow the window. Narrowing the window is going to make things easier. So not spending too much time messing with the car setup can be a good thing from time to time. Even though this is clearly not going to be the setup, right? This is not going to get us where we need it to be. This is going away from where we need it to be. This is probably going too far away from where it needs to be as well. So we're making one good change, one good stay the same, and the other 3 are probably, not so good. So overall, this is not going to be the setup, but it's early. Right now, we just need to be running on track more often than not, and we need feedback. So we need to make a change to get feedback, but saving 4 minutes is 4 minutes more running time. I did mention that I'm worried about how this race weekend could go, and right now, I have every reason to believe that we are going to have a difficult race weekend. Albon and Pourchaire are both over 3 seconds off the pace compared to everybody else. Now, I don't push in practice, so we always set a slow time compared to others, but we're usually a lot more competitive, closer than this. We're well off right now. There's literally only 3 other cars, Vettel, Stroll, and Schumacher, that are even over 2 seconds off the pace. Guan Yu Zhou's a 1.7, so we're a second and a half off his pace almost, and that is going to easily translate into we're racing the Aston Martins at best this race weekend, and we've already had a lockup from Porsche and 2 spins by Albon. Is not a great start to the weekend either.
Balance feedback when capacity.
So we've nearly got Porsche maxed out now at 91%, with a couple optimals, 2 greats, and a good, and we can see exactly what direction we need to go to get that traction sorted out. So it's going to make it quite easy at this stage to get, that 4% more. We need to get the maximum bonus. We just need to move that traction over while trying to keep everything else mostly the same. And straights, that optimal's got to be just to the left. And for oversteer, it's probably just to the left as well, though certainly not guaranteed. But traction is going to come out of this department. You're not going to get much traction movement, or at least not the right amount of traction movement you need out of these. So we're going to have to do some big tweaking to make it happen. And there you go. Switching the roll distribution and tire camber alone did it, kind of offsetting each other. You can see we moved the traction over quite a bit while keeping the cornering and braking stability the same, and getting a tiny little difference on the oversteer where the straights is the same, but that brought us over, and that hopefully will be enough to get the 4%. I would guess it's probably going to push us to maybe 94% and leave us just a little bit off, but I'm not sure where else we're going to find much of a difference. And it's still FP2, so Porsche, we're going to get him his big bonuses. Track climatization, though, only 33%. He's always slow to get that up. I don't know if it's experience or what that causes that. But so here's a more complicated one. Albon's only at 82% right now. He's good on braking stability and cornering, but unfortunately, he's right down the middle. So which direction to move the two? Well, your guess is as good as mine. And only 1 optimal, so it's going to be a lot harder to bring him up, and a lot harder to do it as we're absolutely going to have to spend more time making these adjustments. All right, so we did make it to 95% here with Porsche, so that means right now it's all about track acclimatization to get those last couple of performance bonus points. So we push on for that. I think 95% is enough. You don't have to get to 96. We've got enough time. I'm going to see if we can't get a little more, especially as it's still only FP2. Busy track as we're going to head out a second time here in Q1. So far, with the first set of laps done, Albon ahead of Norris, who was on the track at the same time, by the way, and ahead of now Schumacher, while Porsche is the slowest. Vettel comes in just ahead of us. I'd like to see Stroll towards the back end of that would be nice. And Magnussen also coming in behind. So Albon's time, not bad. Was traffic a factor in that? Stroll in between. Stroll is in between. Porsche definitely needs a better time. And I just did a second lap with each, not improving their times. Porsche, I was on fresh tires. Albon went out on the same tires for a second run. Okay, so we are 2 of the 3 final cars out on track. We've got an Alfa Romeo behind us. They're looking pretty good on this track, 6th and 10th right now. So I don't think we're going to necessarily compete with them. But in terms of timing, I don't know if Albon has anything better than what he's done. That was the best time we've seen from him all race weekend, and it was just enough to be competitive with guys that probably didn't get the best out of their first lap. Porsche, meanwhile, I think that's actually the best he's been putting in all weekend as well. So this might be it. But both are on fresh set of tires, and we'll see if we can't get a little something out of this one. I like Porsche's position just a little bit better than where Albon is positioned at right now. Albon just a little close to where Pourchaire is. Pourchaire might be just close enough to get a little toe down the straights, where Albon's probably too close, getting dirty air. Albon is green in Sector 1, though. Session comes to an end. Vettel on the bubble right now. He has somebody else moved ahead. I think it was Ricardo. No, it's Magnussen. Magnussen has moved well up the order to P10. Leclerc goes from just on the edge. He was close to the bubble himself. Stroll is done and not gotten past Albon. Schumacher is done and has not gotten past Albon. So we are not starting from the back of the grid this time. By the way, we also have some pretty used parts. This just did not feel like a track that we're going to perform terribly well on. So we've got a used engine. We've got a used gearbox. We've got some work to do. Albon improved his time, but not his position. Vettel did. Pourchaire also improved his time, but also not his position. So that's going to be P17, P20 out in Q1, but at least we're not last. I do think we are going to be fighting at the back of the grid this time, though, especially with the used parts and just a track that doesn't quite suit us. So we're going to have some fresh engine stuff next time. No penalties yet. Here is the expected race strategy. Go on the hards, and then switch to whatever wet tire we need when the time comes. If you look overhead here, chance of rain is at the top. There is a decent chance early on. I do not count on it happening. However, beginning here, you got 65%, 95%, 75%. Very clearly, we should get some rain in here. There's a good chance that we're going to get some rain in here. So somewhere along here, it's going to start to rain, and we're going to need to switch probably to the intermediates, because that is quite a few laps before it's going to get really wet for a little while and then slowly dry out. So probably switch to the full wets, if not initially. You know, we'll see how quickly that rain comes down. Iffy situation. I mean, you're looking at probably 8 laps in the intermediates. Do you go full wets then? I mean, you're going to lose some time. You're going to absolutely lose some time. So maybe you go intermediates, then full wets, and then back to intermediates towards the end. I doubt it's going to dry out enough, but it could. It could. Depends on how soon it stops raining. This could be an interesting race in terms of the strategy. But one stopper hard initially, and then whatever wet compounds we're going to need from there.
Now we should have good weather for the race, and that will be welcome news for the teams. Here we have Alexander Albon. Slower than most yesterday, so today they'll be starting from the bottom half of the grid. And looking at the second Williams car. They're starting in the bottom half of the grid today, so there's a lot of cars between them and the podium. The teams are ready to go. This is it. It's time for the French Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
All right, and we are off and racing. Like I said, this one's going to go much quicker than what we had last time. And that is Max Verstappen starting in last place, taking engine penalty. At the we had a look to the inside. I thought we had the Haas there, and instead, Max backs out, so we get back ahead of him.
That's right.
So we're back up at a P19 for the moment, but we had that pass. We had the inside, and then we pulled out of it. Looks like Verstappen on the mediums is going to struggle because he's going to end up having to pit as a result. Let's get that quick look at how we're looking on tires. Ricardo, Tsunoda, Sainz, Bottas. 5 cars that I think are going to have a real issue unless we get that early rain. Pourchaire up to P18. That was actually Pourchaire that had been on the inside, right? He's on the inside of Mick Schumacher now. But can he finish the move? He's going to have to go around the outside, but he'll get back to the inside as that's a 3-corner, now 4-corner, and he does get him tucked in behind. So Pourchaire ahead of Schumacher with Stroll just ahead. Albon is just behind Vettel. Pourchaire putting pressure on Stroll. I think for Porsche, I'd be happy if we can get ahead of Stroll and then settle in. Verstappen already has gotten around Schumacher, so he's also pressuring Porsche. He's got us to the outside down the straight. He's going to cut back to the inside and cannot make a move right now. Albon couldn't finish the move on Vettel, though they called it the other way. And there goes Verstappen. You knew that was going to happen at some point. Let's see if we could follow him through with Stroll.
Red Bull gained a place.
Albon with the lockup. That's Albon on the side there, so big mistake from him. DRS train forming up with Vettel at the head. Stroll, Verstappen, Porsche, and Schumacher, the rest of that. Verstappen can't complete the move on Vettel, but Stroll does get around Vettel. Okay, Verstappen has made his way past both Aston Martins now. Ten laps in, Leclerc is in second place, Sainz in the lead. Those two are a ways ahead. Perez falling back in third in the slower driver pair of the Red Bulls. Russell hot on his heels, but has been unable to get past him for a long time. Gasly, Bottas, Alonso, all there. Hamilton, like Verstappen, had some engine penalties, but not enough to push him to the very back of the grid. Only to, well, he sits P8 now anyway. I don't know exactly where he started, but Ocon, Guan Yu Zhou, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Verstappen having caught up to them. All in one big train. Verstappen has only made it past one car so far from that train. That's Norris. And then the back train with Vettel, Stroll, Porsche, Schumacher, and finally Albon has caught up to that. I pushed on with fuel for a little bit to get him up to that train. So now we are a back five running, but we are running quite a ways behind the front group. So like I said, this is not a very good track for us, and it's really showing here early on. We're going to be speeding things up for a little while waiting for something to change, because we're running on the hard compound around me. All of the back five are on the hard compound. That trade with Verstappen climbing his way through on the mediums, and Sainz, who's pulled away a little bit, is on the medium, so he's actually in a bit of trouble. Leclerc's really, I think, in the strongest position right now of any car in the field. So it's lap 22, and those on the medium compounds are pitting. Also, we saw a big mistake from Tsunoda. So Ricciardo and Tsunoda have just come out in P19, P20, just a little bit off the back of our train of 5, which is still here. Now, our train has changed positions a little bit, as Schumacher got past Porsche, and then Albon got past Porsche. And you're seeing the two Aston Martins right now looking like they're switching positions. Possibly Stroll. No, Stroll unable to make a move, but it is bunching the 5 of us up a little bit here. So that Sainz also pit. So that moved Leclerc backwards. And you're now seeing everyone on the hard compound at the moment, pushing, going, waiting for the weather. And we're looking at 25% chance, so the chance of rain is increasing. Yellow flag, sector 1. Porsche just doesn't quite have the pace in the car that doesn't quite have the pace today. He's not far off of Albon, but he's not quite there. If Albon hadn't made that mistake, Albon would definitely be further up, maybe in that midfield train, which would very much change our race, but I don't quite think he would have been fast enough to hang on to that train. So you're seeing front 5 well away, and then you're seeing midfield train with Verstappen, who just pit, plus an Alpha who just pit, and then ours with the couple guys who were at the back end of that midfield train just behind us. They're going to catch up fairly soon and get into this mix. At that point, I think they'll get caught up. It'll take them too long. It'll be too hard to get through. They're not going to have that much of a pace advantage over the rest of us. As again, the two Aston Martins side by side.
For the rain expected.
Okay. Wet weather predicted. Are we getting a sprinkle right now? Not at the moment. It's definitely a little misty out there. And we are starting to get a little bit of a shower on the track here, the early version. The early rain is beginning to fall here.
Just one shot.
Yeah, there you go. In at the very, very beginning of this phase. In fact, we're not even there yet. So before we were supposed to get to the rain has come a little bit earlier, which could mean intermediates for a longer period of time. And you can see how the weather report has changed a little bit. That heavy rain still coming later on. You'll need full wets for that. But I think intermediates is going to be the way to go, because we're looking at 10 or more laps before that full wet weather situation is going to appear. And it's quickly gone up to 1.52. Quickly gone up to 1.52. So it's time to get at least one car in this time, or maybe even double stack here, as we're into intermediates range already now. Now, making the final call, though, is going to take a little bit here because it's intensifying quickly. Will we push straight on to full wets? Oh, this poor Cher gets shoved out of the way. Somebody has spun already.
Yellow red.
Schumacher with the spin. That's good for us.
Watch this. There's Schumacher.
Right in front of Albin, though.
And this.
Just lost it
This is where
in
they
the wet
spun
here. Ooh. Bad place to spin out, though. Is he going to be able to continue on? Okay, heading down the back straight. And we need to, front cars into the pits. Let's see what they come out on. We've got intermediates. Stroll on a very, very used wet set. Maybe not. I'm thinking that's his hards on 57. He's going to the wets. And I do think we need a double stack. Even though Pourchaire is less than 2 seconds behind, it's going to cost him a second, but he's going to lose a lot more than that on track. So we do want a double stack here. We're almost to that crossover point where you need wets and not intermediates, and it's still increasing. But look, now it's not. Now it's really starting to settle down. So I think it's about where it's going to be, which means not heavy enough. So I do think we need the intermediates. Let's go ahead and get Albin. Pourchaire. I waited too long. I waited too long for Pourchaire. Oh no, he's going around one more lap. I thought I had it clicked in time. I really did. Okay, well, anyway, Albin gets in. He's on to the intermediates. And the track's already starting to dry out a little bit. So rain has lifted slightly. But the right thing was absolutely to pit. It was just a matter of whether it was intermediates or full wets. And it looks like intermediates was the right call, but for Pourchaire, we missed by 2 meters. The deadline or something on making the call. Stroll and Vettel are both on the full wets. And Pourchaire back out on the intermediates. So the only ones on full wets are the Aston Martins. We should be moving past them quite easily here. And at the moment, We've certainly closed up on Vettel, but we have not been able to get past him at this stage. Let's go ahead and use the overtake and go a little more aggressive. Let's see if we can't get that move done and get around Vettel. Stroll's all the way up at the 14th. He pit early. He pit a lap earlier, benefited from it. But again, going on the full wets as the rain on the track is less and less here. Albon's to the outside though, side by side, and he finally completes the move. Stroll has not lost a position yet, and the rainfall is picking up again. So actually it's getting closer and closer to Vettel getting faster. Let's see how he's kind of closed back up on us already as we start to re-enter the crossover point. Alright, so we have pulled away from Vettel. That's good news. But only marginally so. And it's looking like we're going to need that second pit stop. Rain is definitely coming down a bit heavier right now. But you can see where it brought us up to 3 and almost a quarter is drifting back down towards 3. So the rain has let off just a little bit here. Albon has caught Tsunoda and Stroll. Ricciardo finally got around Stroll, and Stroll is definitely going backwards right now as the track dried out just a little bit here. Can we get by though? Is a whole different matter. Having a look to the inside of Tsunoda, as Tsunoda is not really making the push to get past Stroll. It's going to be, I feel like it's tougher to pass Tsunoda. Vettel with the lockup, so that's backing him up even further. Schumacher has gone around Vettel now. It's only Pourchaire behind him. You're seeing a lot faster wear on the wet compound as well, being that it's the wrong tire for these conditions. But while we're leaving Vettel behind, Stroll still in front of us as he pit a lap earlier than Albon. Here comes the rain again, starting to pick back up. And we're looking at maybe getting a little break in the rain here in a couple minutes. Track drying out a little more. And then I think we should be having that heavy rain just after that. Lap 36 of 53. Sainz back in the race lead ahead of Leclerc. Gasly, Hamilton, Alonso, Russell, Perez, and now Verstappen all the way back up to 8th place, with Magnussen and Bottas rounding out the points-paying positions. And we're caught in a battle of the back 6, really. Ricciardo, I don't think, is too far ahead. No, he's not. But it's a bit of a gap to Guan Yu Zhou. 3.36 on the rainfall. So almost crossover, meaning Stroll is going to get a little bit faster here, but you can still tell that the intermediate is slightly better than the wets at this stage. Having a look to the eventual outside, and we tuck back in though on Tsunoda. Okay, heavy rainfall coming in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And then we're going to have to go full wets. Now, double stacking is easy. We want the right timing, but it's absolutely coming soon. I wouldn't mind risking things with Pourchaire a little bit. Pitting sooner. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. 3.73. I don't know if I want to risk it yet with Albon, but Pourchaire is going to pit this lap. And we'll see how much faster. There's that acknowledgement that the track is very wet. Oh, big stop there. Ricciardo. Was that Albon? Yes, there's a big incident in the middle of the road. Big incident in the middle of the road. And we are stopped on track. Somebody had a problem and stopped right in front of us, and we ended up stopping. And Albon's all the way down to P19. All the way down to P19. Somebody stopped right in front of Albon, and it glitched out. Another incident there. Drivers really having trouble here in these wet conditions, and it's leading to a lot of kind of stop and go backup stuff. Leclerc stops Albon in the middle of the road a second time a lap later from where he was before. Right? Really messing up our race at the moment. Surprised if the Aston Martins move up quite a bit. Stroll's up to P11 right now. Vettel's in P16 as well. They definitely lost time. They didn't lose much, and that was on the race. Suddenly goes dry, but it's supposed to start raining again here in 4 minutes time.
No further rain.
Yep, copy.
Oh, that was blue flag situation for Albon. Really slow through there, track trying out at the moment. That is Schumacher behind us, but yeah, we're suddenly down to P18 and P20 thanks to the Ferrari stopping in the middle of the road, or whoever it was the first time. The rain held off, so we were supposed to get another heavy shower, and it hasn't happened, and it looks like it might be dry the rest of the way. So everybody's on the wets. I think we might want to just kind of wait for the track to dry out a bit and then pit. Oh yes, tires are severely overheating. We can't really afford to push in this situation. Because of the heating situation, you're going to lose more time than you are if you're pushing.
You can afford to drop back.
Bold strategy call. Porsche is going to be the first to come into the pits and go with the soft compound for the last 10 laps of this race. Let's see how much faster he is. Of course, he's losing about 25 more seconds with this pit stop. So he's going to have to really gain a lot. But compared to full wets, with the track drying out and continually drying out, it's going to be worth it. But let's see if he has any issues. The tires were really badly overheating, and with Albon, we're 18th and 20th. We've got nothing to lose at this point. We're going to do the same thing on this lap. Right now, the interval is still growing, so Porsche is falling further back right now than he was. So apparently we haven't really hit the crossover point, but we can... 36 seconds. We've lost 5 seconds in half a lap, even though the rainfall is at 1.35 millimeters. Is Porsche just that uncertain in these conditions? God, he is driving so slow right now. Track is only damp. Full wets should be slower at this than what you would have as we're this close to the crossover, but okay, fine. Lost eight additional seconds on that lap, but I would imagine we're going to start to see it coming down. Now it's Albon we're behind, so we're going to have to watch his time as he comes out. Porsche still way off the pace. Okay, 14.3, so let's... Nothing to lose in this strategy, but so far it is absolutely not panning out. Albon starting to stabilize, though. He was 14 seconds.
Dry weather.
Okay, we're now into the dry stage, which means we really should be faster. I think part of the problem is I went with the soft, so I didn't think about this one, but in real life, the harder compound is going to deal with the dispersion of the water a little bit better. Softs are going to get up to temperature a little faster. It kind of depends. Mediums might have been the way to go. But anyway, we'll see. It's drying out pretty fast. And Albon does not appear to be losing much time anymore. Time is stabilized. Magnussen and Bottas are pitting. And we are now closing the gap. We are finally starting to close the gap a little bit on those around us. But it's too late. It's too late. A pit stop now is costing you a lot. We're not really gaining that much, and we already lost way too much in this race to get back into it at this point. We can get ahead of Schumacher, and that's about it. Vettel pitting, Stroll pitting. That's getting them out of those possible points-paying positions. I thought Stroll would have gotten around, or Tsunoda would have gotten around Stroll, but at least he's down to P14. And we are still 19th and 20th right now. Well, as we go to wrap this race up, it's Sainz ahead of Gasly. Gasly on the podium. Good timing for him, but Hamilton has gotten around, but he's still on that podium. Leclerc, though, breathing down his neck, just 4 seconds behind with a few laps to go. So Gasly has not secured that podium just yet, but he's made the right calls at the right time, and it has definitely benefited him. Hamilton, though, also a podium for the Mercedes is excellent for them, as Ferrari and Red Bull have dominated. They don't have the DNFs like we get in real life, and that's not freed up podium positions. They've pretty consistently been 1, 2, 3, 4 most races, or one driver further back. Perez P8. Verstappen recovered all the way to P5, by the way, from 20th. Alonso and Russell in between there. Bottas, Magnussen wrapping up the points. That's going to make 11, I think, for Haas now this season, while we sit on 2. Norris, Ocon, Stroll down to 13th now. Guan Yu Zhou right on his heels. Tires severely overheating. So we ride with Gasly as he tries to fight back against Hamilton and has gotten side by side with him here on the final lap. In terms of tires, how are they looking on that one? Both on softs, so surprising that Gasly is able to compete, but as we've already seen, the Mercedes does not have a significant advantage here in the game, as they have developed to that point in real life where they're back up to getting fairly competitive with those top 2 teams. At this point in the game, they're still midfield, just upper edge of it, but still very much midfield. They've not bridged that gap, but Hamilton has gotten back ahead. Sainz claims the win, and Hamilton is heading for a second place finish here. Gasly's going to have to settle for third, but he should definitely have it in the bag,
crosses the line first.
as Leclerc is still 2.7 back. And there it is, the 2-3 on the podium for Gasly. Good result. In fact, that is your highest finishing Red Bull. Because who we can, they drive for Red Bull. Quite clear how they benefit the Red Bull having AlphaTauri. So many ways. In particular, I think the most noticeable way that AlphaTauri has benefited, besides inopportune things happening on the track that head scratchers, but I think the most notable thing was the switch over from Renault to Honda as the engine supplier, because McLaren had been McLaren Honda and it was not going well at all there, and they had nothing but problems. They had plenty of DNFs, and they did their best, but it was just, they were off pace, they were struggling, and Porsche, the only car still yet to finish. He's about to cross the line in P20. Not a good race for us, but when they made that changeover, they made the multi-year deal with Honda, they only put the engine in the AlphaTauri the first year. And AlphaTauri had engine penalties every other week, dropping to the back of the grid, putting in a new engine over and over and over again as they gathered more and more data. So they completely sacrificed their season and most of their performances to rapidly develop the engine. The next year, Red Bull also had that Honda engine, and while it wasn't perfect, it was performing so much better than it had been. And what you had was the Red Bull running that engine consistently, taking very few DNFs, very few engine penalties through the year, with an engine that was getting better and better. Meanwhile, AlphaTauri didn't engine penalty every other week, didn't DNF constantly through the year as they were testing new engine options, but they still had them very frequently throughout the year. Red Bull got the direct benefit of the AlphaTauri sacrificing totally one season and most of a second season, penalty after penalty, DNF after DNF, park it up, change it out, try again, go back to the drawing board. Anyway, Albon 18th, Porsche 20th. Always knew it was going to be a hard race. Strategy in the rain, tried something, didn't pan out for us. So unlucky on the Porsche one. Albon making a mistake along the way. We tried to switch to the softs a little earlier than everybody else, and it did not pan out. But the odd thing was, with just over 1 millimeter of water, that's not how that should have worked. We should have been faster than the wets by that point. 1.5 millimeters all the way to 4. I could see the wets still being faster than what you had in the softs. But when you're that close to the changeover, there should have been a fairly dry racing line at that stage, and we should have been able to pick up the pace a little faster than we did. The moment it went under 1, then it just instantly was faster for everybody, and that's when everybody else pit. So now we know in the future, that's the thing. Race mechanics are not quite equal to what real life is, but they're very close. They're very similar, and I do appreciate that they've made every effort to make that happen. But here it's quite clear that 1 millimeter is your changeover point. There's no go at 1.2 or go at 1.15 and think that you're going to be better than wets. Wets were just straight up better until exactly 1.0. Now we know. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.